We are going to talk about a movie.
This is going to be a disaster.
It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater. What is going on, everybody? Taylor here, and I am joined by...
Mr. Jacob London.
That is correct. And a couple of days ago, we got to go to a preview screening of Spider-Man Far From Home, which is what we are going to be talking about today.
Yep, we are, and I am so excited to talk about this movie finally.
I've been so excited too, and we just had no time over our weekend to do it. So now we are sitting down, and we are going to talk about everything. What we are going to do is the first couple minutes, we're going to give you some non-spoiler. We're going to hit you with that non-spoiler action, and then we will let you know when we're going to start letting spoilers fly, because we're going to do it.
Yep.
So, Jacob, without giving anything away, please give me your general feelings about this movie.
My very general non-spoiler thoughts of this movie is I loved it. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. I thought Tom Holland absolutely stole this movie. He again fully embraces who Spider-Man is. He is by far and above my favorite Spider-Man and my favorite Peter Parker. I think he has an ability to tap into both elements of this character so well and so perfectly that we've never seen on screen before. However, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, completely just takes this movie to a whole nother level, and we will get deeper into him later. But he is the best introduction of this movie. Easily, he is the best character and the best introduction in this film. What I did love is how strong and how purposefully it dealt with the aftermath of Endgame.
Yeah.
And how it was this film is definitely... You couldn't have made this film as a standalone film. It was very much within the MCU, and it felt like it was in the MCU the entire time, but it also felt like Spider-Man's story. And it felt like it was dealing with the aftermath of the MCU, but also while being Spider-Man's story. And I love that they were able to find a way where it didn't feel like the first one, which I don't agree with, but I know a lot of people do, where it's Iron Man 4. This one was so very much, this is Tom Holland and Spider-Man's film. He is Spider-Man and it is a Spider-Man villain, and that's what I absolutely loved about this film. So what did you think about this one?
I have some complicated thoughts about this movie. And it's not because I didn't like it. I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. I think that it handles a lot of things very well. I think, to your point, it's very much an accompaniment to Endgame. It's very much the movie that you need after Endgame to figure out where this universe is, how people are dealing with things, but also how Peter Parker is dealing with things, because whether people want to cry and scream about it or not, he's very much going to be the center of the new Avengers, whether they call it that or not. But Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is going to be the one that they focus on moving forward. And they make that very clear in this movie, even more so, where they deal with him losing Tony. And they deal with how he deals with that as Peter and as Spider-Man in very different ways, and how it affects both his personal life and the life of trying to be a superhero, which I think is fantastic. It's something that maybe you don't really see as much. You kind of see how either the superheroes are affected, or you see how people are affected personally. And I think they strike a really good balance in this movie. It's a very emotional movie, so if you think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows trying to get you over Endgame, it's definitely not the case.
No.
But I think you needed that. I think that it handles the humor that it has very well. I think that Tom Holland does a great job, as always. I think he's always done great as Spider-Man, whether he's been in a movie for 10 minutes or had the whole movie. And I think that this movie is solidifying the fact that Spider-Man villains are some of the most interesting that you can explore in the MCU. And we really get that with Mysterio in this movie. I enjoyed the way that he was handled, and I really am looking forward to talking about that more in depth in a little bit. But Jake Gyllenhaal is great. I saw someone say on Twitter that his performance in this is just like his performance in Okja, but dialed down about 10%. And I 100% think that's the best way to describe it if you've seen that movie, which is fantastic. He really gets to play a very different character than we're used to him seeing in this movie, and I think he does it really well. And there are some nice little twists in this movie that you won't see coming that I really, really liked a lot. I thought were handled well. And yeah, I don't really know how much more I can say without getting into spoilery things, but I do think that it's a very strong movie. It's a very strong way to end this phase. And it really opens up a lot of broad possibilities for the future.
That is the understatement of the year. Yeah, the future is interesting, shall we say the least. Well, I think that's a very good segue.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. If you guys haven't seen the movie, which I know a lot of people haven't because it really hasn't been out yet. No. If you haven't seen it, please go see it because it's really, really good. And it will leave you thinking about a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. So this is where we're going to start talking about spoilery things.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
So if you don't want anything about this movie spoiled for you, please don't watch any further because we're really about to get into it.
Again, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Okay, so...
You think they got it?
I think they got it. All right, so the big spoiler of this movie. J.K. Simmons is back as JJ. Yes!
And we were all hoping for it.
Yeah. It's funny. I will actually get back into this at some point. I just want to tell this story. I had that JK was going to be in this movie spoiled for me. At least I was 90% sure that he was. Based on the reactions, and there are certain people who I know the only way that they would react the way they did to this movie was if JJ came back. So that's what I thought that scene was. That's all I thought it was.
But it's much more than that. I don't want to jump into that yet.
We won't jump into it yet, but...
Don't go there yet. We got to build up to that point.
That was the shock for me, and that's what made that, that was...
You're like, I know the spoiler. Oh, frick, no, I don't.
I was like, all right. So before we get anywhere near that,
before we get, let's rewind it back a little bit here.
All right. I love the opening of this film. The in memoriam to
That's
Robert.
The best. First of all, they, without even showing you anything, they set the tone with the music that they chose, which they play it, and you're like, I don't know whether this is comedic or whether I'm going to cry or what it is. And then you get that slideshow made by high school kids that look like it was made on like a shoebox with a projector with...
I thought it was brilliant and a really great way of, okay, this is the world. This is now the MCU. They showed what it was like when people turned back up. Just suddenly in the middle of a basketball game, all these people just turned back up randomly. They showed that people have aged.
Yeah.
They show I thought that was really well done. I love the joke of, even though we were finished middle school, we had to still repeat it.
We still had to repeat right in the middle of the frickin'... Yeah, I know.
I did like that. Like, there was a lot of it that I really thought was well handled, considering where this movie could have gone. I thought that was really smart in that it showed, no, there were actual consequences for the MCU with Endgame. Right. Endgame didn't wrap it up in a nice little bow. There are
people still dealing with the fact that they either had to redo school, or that suddenly they were a lot older than their friends, or things like that.
That there's suddenly the little twerp who was 5 years younger is now suddenly the hot jock.
One of my favorite jokes was, my little brother is older than me now. And he just has this look of just existential fuckery on his face.
I did love that moment. That was actually pretty good.
Because you don't think about
yeah.
that, but if one sibling gets snapped and the other one doesn't, and all of a sudden you're the younger sibling, that is hilarious.
No, and my other favorite line was when Flash was in first class and drinking. So he got snapped. He got snapped. He's not 21. I thought that was the best line.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. But I did like the way that they set it up, because they set it up to show us that there were consequences, but they also showed us these are still high school kids and they're still going to find stupid humor to use a lot of this stuff. Well, whether it's because that's just who they are, because that's part of coping, or whatever it is, I thought that was great to show that it's not all just doom and gloom all the time.
And I did really enjoy that aspect of it, and I thought that was clever and a really great way of making the seriousness that would be, everyone was joking after Endgame. There was all the memes about, oh my god, people, what would happen if someone turned up 5 years after you've moved on? You yourself have dealt with it, and there are very serious ways you could address this. And they decided to go, well, let's show the perspective of a child. How would a child handle this? Like a teenager handle this.
And I think that one of the comedic moments that was actually one of the most heartbreakingly tragic moments to me, but got a really big laugh because it's supposed to be funny, is when the teacher says, my wife pretended she got snapped to go leave me. And,
exactly.
because that would happen. That there would be people that trash enough to do something like that. But it was funny because you're like, oh my god.
So those sort of moments I did really think this movie handled well, was dealing with the consequences of Endgame, but in a way that was not so just...
I think it was in a way that was true to the tone of Spider-Man.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. Yes, that is
where
very much
where you still have serious moments and you still have serious, undertones, but you have that humor and you still know the world that you're in.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed how the portrayal of Spider-Man in this, that he's kind of he's not over it. He just needs a break.
He needs to you're right. He needs to go on this vacation and not think about it, because at the beginning of the movie, you have that scene where all of these reporters are like, are you the next Iron Man? Are you? And he has a panic attack because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do.
And I like the fact that it's not just that, are you the next Iron Man? It's also the fact that he has to cope. He has to cope with the fact that... Well,
that's what I'm saying. So many people are focused on him moving on when he hasn't even had time to cope with anything.
The fact that not only that, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. is now... Tony Stark has now passed away, but that... He died. He was gone. The world he knew has moved on for 5 years, and I did like the fact that the movie actually kind of addressed that. That was a very serious and important aspect of this film, was that he is coping with the fact, it wasn't just the happy-go-lucky Spider-Man that Endgame never happened.
Right.
It actually dealt with the fact that Endgame happened, and when people ask, why do you want Spider-Man in the MCU? That's why, because you are able to use the MCU to tell a story about Spider-Man that you could never have done in the Raimi films or the Mark Webb films.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, you could never have told this story there. You could have done all the other aspects possibly if you had the right directors and stuff, but you couldn't have done that. The character moment of Spider-Man, and that is why it's so important that he stays within the MCU. And I've seen a lot of criticism about, everything's the MCU now, but that's why, because it's important, and it furthers the character that we've known for 5 films. So this is the 5th time we've spent time with this character, and it's really important that we actually are able to see the growth in him. So from there we got, Spider-Man decide, Happy and May. that was easily like one of my favorite like running jokes of the whole movie. I thought that was actually extremely clever.
I mean, yeah, I thought it was. They didn't put so much of it in where it felt like, oh, they're just trying to shove them into this
Yeah.
movie. I think that it was good because Happy is in this movie quite a bit, and it makes sense to not only just because of it's a good storytelling device to have him there, to have May have someone to spy on him.
Yeah.
But they do have really good chemistry. And it's just hilarious to see Peter trying to figure out what the heck
what's
like,
going on. Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah. I did like that we got. Part of me kind of wishes the film touched a little bit more on it, which was May's reaction to the fact that he's Spider-Man. I don't think the movie kind of showed. We never got to see her initial reaction, which I know you couldn't really do here, but it's kind of one of those things where I would have loved to have seen what her initial reaction was and how whether or not she's changed post Endgame, or you understand what I mean? Like how has she reacted to that?
Yeah, I do get what you mean, but you just can't.
Yeah.
Like, with the way that these movies have been written, there's no way you can put that in there. Like, it just wouldn't work. I mean, if you wanted to start this movie that way, maybe, but then you're kind of leaning too heavily on, I think, still focusing on the snap itself.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the next film might, because I think it would be smart too, because you've had her obviously dealing with the snap post that, and him trying to be just a normal kid going on vacation with his classmates. And I think probably where she's at in this film is trying to put on a strong front so that he can actually get through school and have fun with his friends. But I think maybe in the next movie, after him dealing with what he dealt with in this movie on top of that, maybe, it just gets her to a point where she's kind of cracking that facade of trying to not freak out about it, is maybe cracking a little bit. I mean, I would have liked to see it too, but I just feel like where they went in this story, you really didn't have. Yeah,
I can see that. I can like the way they've told this story. Yeah, I can't really see a moment for it.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It would have been nice too, but I don't know where you put it.
Especially considering like the scene where you would put it, it wouldn't make sense where Peter is emotionally.
Right.
And that's like, which is obviously the scene where during the homeless shelter.
Right.
Like, that's the scene you put it in, but he's not prepared for that conversation emotionally.
And she doesn't seem to be either.
No, yeah, but her, like, his arc at that point in the film, it's not, you wouldn't have that conversation there.
Well, neither is hers. Like, their arcs just don't match up in the story as to where you could actually have that, which is why I think maybe next film, depending on where they go with it, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but possibly next film, I think you could focus on her a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we will see.
All right, so let's move on to the introduction of Jake Gyllenhaal. I think that's, I think, like, we get Europe, we get the fun.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of little fun moments that we do get to see with Spider-Man. I mean, the whole thing with the Black Dahlia, I thought was really cute. Like, it's cute. He obviously, he has a crush on MJ and he wants to tell her that he likes her. Like, that's cute.
Yeah.
It works in the film. Like, I really loved all that dynamic. The whole, sorry, I do want to talk about the whole Betty and Ned dynamic. Is so high school.
It's hilarious because that is absolutely something that would happen on a high school trip. You put a bunch of high schoolers on a plane for, what was it, like 14 hours? And you sit these two teenagers next to each other who don't really want to talk, and then they're dating by the end of the flight. That's exactly how that would happen.
It was perfect, and that whole dynamic worked so well for me. I can see people not liking that. That is the one. I can
too, but I thought it was great.
It was brilliant.
It was great.
I loved it. And if someone came up to me and was like, Betty and Ned really annoyed me.
I get that.
I get it. Like,
and I mean, if I were friends with them,
Yeah.
I would have been so annoyed. Like, if you're actually in that situation, you're like, are you serious?
It was, but it's, I thought it was really
It reminded me of a
well
lot
done.
of the friends that I had in high school
Yeah.
who were in relationships
Well,
like
and
that.
I think overall, I think this film does a really great job of again showing high school.
I think
like
it
the
does
first
too.
one did too. Like
Yeah.
these
feel
high
age
school-
appropriate.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
feel like high school coming of age films. Like
Yeah.
they're great in that regards, and that's why I love these characters, and I love spending time with these. And I'll be very disappointed if we don't get to spend more time with
I
them
know.
down the line. But let's move on to the introduction of arguably the film's best character, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio.
Yeah.
The first fight with the water elemental, I thought was really well handled. That Peter was trying so hard not to reveal his identity.
Yeah. While he's still trying to help
Yeah.
because he can't just stand there and not do anything.
I thought that was brilliant. That even though he is so determined, I am on holidays, I am not going to do this, he still wanted to do this.
Yeah.
And it was just, that is emblematic of who Peter is, and I did thoroughly enjoy that. Again, the costume.
The costume is
oh,
one of my favorites we've seen in the MCU so far.
the fact that they were able to get that costume to look as good as it does and it
know.
not be silly.
I
Like,
know.
and the fact that we sit there and go, that isn't silly. Like, in terms of it looks ridiculous. It's silly from the point of view of it's a comic book. Like, do you understand what I mean? Like, it's silly from the...
We take it seriously because of the world that it's in.
Yes.
But if you look at it just from a movie, not in the comic book world, of course it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it through the lens of this is a comic book movie, you look at that costume and say, that is so cool.
Yeah, and I'm loving the fact, and also fascinated by the fact that 15 years ago we got the joke, what would you rather, yellow spandex? And now we're at, Jake Gyllenhaal has a fishbowl on his head. Like, and it works.
I know.
Like, it works
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
So I'm shocked by that, and I thought that was brilliant.
One of the things I thought was really funny is you get the scene in the trailer, but when it's in the movie where you're seeing Mysterio on the news for the first time and all the kids are trying to figure out who he is.
Yeah.
And because they're in Italy, Mysterio is what they call him because he's a mystery. They don't know who he is. But everyone's like, no, Mysterio.
So from there we get Nick Fury. We finally see, he finally catches up with Nick Fury. We basically get the introduction of the multiverse, and we get all that. And what did you think of that scene?
Well, I think it was interesting that they address that technically they've met before, but not really, because a funeral's not really
Yes.
a time when you get to know each other very well,
Yes.
and that's the only other time they've been in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that scene actually is, because if it is Nick Fury and Maria, then it goes one way.
Yeah.
And if it's not Nick Fury and Maria, then I think of it a very different way.
Yeah.
And watching the movie, obviously, I didn't have that train of thought, because why would you think that it's not Nick Fury and Maria? So just watching it, I think that they are very much trying to figure out how to deal with someone who has just shown up from a different universe, because who knows? Everything that happened with Thanos could have completely ripped a hole in everything they know, and it would make sense for someone to show up claiming that they're from another version of their world.
What I loved is that they had that conversation. Now, this scene is recontextualized if it's Nick Fury or if it's Talos.
Right.
Where he says, I was gone for 5 years. I don't know anything anymore.
Right.
And if that is Nick Fury, I would love that, because that is true. That is Nick Fury right now. He doesn't know.
He used to know everything about everyone, where everyone was, who was involved with who. Like, if anyone moved or breathed or did anything,
he would know.
He knew about it.
But now he doesn't. And if that is Nick Fury who actually said that, which I want to I need to see the movie again to kind of work that one out.
Yeah.
But that is a huge thing. If it's Talos, they can like.
If it's Talos, then it's a funny way of him being like.
Yeah, and I did like that they used the line of "I can't call the Avengers because I'm Talos. I don't know how to call the Avengers.
How the heck do you call the Avengers?"
And I did like that was their way of getting around it. About why isn't Captain Marvel dealing with this? Why, like, we're about to have the end of the world. Why aren't the Avengers dealing with this? Because I don't fucking know how to call the Avengers. Like that, I thought that was clever.
And then you also have the thing of if it really was world ending and that's not Nick Fury, they would have a way of getting in contact with Nick Fury and being like, this isn't just something that Peter needs to learn how to deal with. This is literally like the end of the world. Which, if that is the case where it's always Talos and it's not Nick Fury, that puts it into an interesting perspective of he's trying to get them to teach Peter something and he knows that it's something that he can handle because it's not actually the multiverse and it's not the end of the world. And which is really, really like I said,
interesting.
It's interesting whichever way you decide to frame that.
Yeah, and I do find interesting also so we're talking obviously about the post-credit scene where it's revealed that Talos and
I can never
I
remember
her name, but they are Maria Hill and Nick Fury in this film.
Yeah.
I do like that they very much said it was for this week. It wasn't. Talos has not been Nick Fury all the time.
No, not the whole time.
It has been Nick Fury for. We have never seen Nick Fury as Talos until
now. Yeah.
Possibly. I doubt the funeral. I think the funeral is Nick Fury.
I don't think so.
And that he's just saying, hey, we get the recent memories, so we can use the recent memories. But I don't know. From there, we get, obviously, Peter and Mysterio and Quentin, getting closer. Obviously, having that kind of, again, another father figure for Peter.
I don't know. I feel like he's taking more of like an older brother.
Yeah, that's right. As soon as I said that, I went, actually, no, it's probably an older brother.
Just because the way that Quentin Beck plays it in this movie is very much the cool older brother you can go to for advice kind of relationship. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I did very much get that dynamic. Obviously, we then get all the comedic stuff with Peter trying to like still be in his trip, but also avoid the trip.
And the trip keeps finding him, and following him around, and which I thought was hilarious when he, tells Fury, I just want to go on my trip. I don't want to do this. And then Fury or Talos or whoever just reroutes the trip to where they need him to be, which is so funny. That is such a Nick Fury thing to do.
It absolutely is.
You can't ghost Nick Fury. Can't do it.
But then obviously we get the big reveal. It's all been a smoke and mirrors.
Which the way they do it is awesome.
I thought it was genius that with a different actor in a different movie, that scene does not work.
No, that could go horribly wrong.
Massive exposition dump. Yeah. It is just nothing but exposition for 5 minutes, but that is Jake Gyllenhaal in his element, just going nuts and enjoying the hell out of what he's doing.
I said, I love the character he gets to play in this movie. He gets to have so much fun with it, which is fantastic. And you really get to actually learn his backstory in a way where you're not like, that's kind of shoehorned in there. You're like, no, that makes sense actually.
The reveal that it was Barf, like that was cool. Like I thought that was clever. I thought, and then the people they brought back to show this is why they were angry. Like I thought that was clever.
I did too. I thought it was good. I can understand if it didn't really work for you, if it did feel shoehorned in, I can understand that. But to me, it didn't bother me. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I thought I can understand someone coming up and going, it's a 5-minute exposition dump. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, it is. You're not going to get around that. It is an exposition dump.
Because you have to know that information, and there's not
Yeah.
really another way that they can give that to you.
Yeah.
Not within the 5 minutes that they have to be able to get it done.
Yeah, not within that moment, but they find a way to do it that's entertaining.
Yes. And I think it also really adds an element of... It adds another layer of Tony Stark being in this film, because you have someone who is not even just someone, you have a lot of people who are completely mourning and still devastated and don't know how to handle that Tony is gone. 2 of the main central characters are devastated and don't know how to handle it. And then you have this other side of the coin where people are so happy that he's gone because they saw him as, in their way, someone who was greedy and selfish and wasn't,
But I also like that they not only did they see it, that they're happy he's gone, they saw an opportunity because he's gone.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have a feeling we're going to be touching upon a little bit more in the MCU.
I think so.
There is suddenly a
big hole,
a big power void.
Yeah.
That where I think we're going to start seeing heroes, like the villains of these films, trying to fill that void.
I think so, and I think it was a good way to introduce that, and an interesting way to kind of tie that part in. That you're right is probably going to have a bigger impact as we go forward.
We know you and I have a theory on who that next one is going to be.
Yeah, we do have a theory,
which we will get to.
So yeah, that was really cool, and it's also the moment where you just sit in your seat and you're like, no, no, Peter's gonna be so upset with himself when he figures this out.
But then we get the MJ reveal that she's figured it out.
Which I didn't see the trailer before the movie that reveals that.
Oh,
I know that other people did. Did you?
No, I didn't know.
So I didn't see the trailer that had it until after the movie, which I'm really happy I didn't, because otherwise I would have been really upset. Just because I don't like things, like, even though it's not, it wouldn't have ruined the movie for me, but it was a nice little thing to actually see in the movie, especially in the context that it's in the movie, because the trailer gives you no context, and the way that it's revealed in context is great, because we really get to see a lot more of MJ's personality in this movie, and I think it really fits with the bigger part of the conversation where she's very unsure of herself. She's literally just guessing, like she does,
I did love that reveal, that like through the entire movie up until that point, MJ feels like she knows everything she's doing, that she is very much in control of everything of who she is. And at that moment, you get the reveal of she actually isn't. She was just guessing half the time. Yeah. And I love that. I thought that was brilliant.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, because, she would be that. She would be very unsure of herself. She would be very, like, I'm not 100% sure on who I am.
Well, and where she said, I was just following you because I thought you were Spider-Man, when clearly she was not just following him for that reason. No. But she'd be terrified to be like, no, it's because I like you. Just going to throw that out there. I'm not insecure at all.
Yeah.
So I really, really liked the way that was handled a lot. I like that we got to see the other side of MJ when she's not trying to put up those walls of being really confident and feeling like she has to be that person outwardly. So that was really, really cool. And I just loved that entire sequence of them being upgraded to this really fancy hotel and getting their own rooms, and then being in this really, really great, beautiful place during the Festival of Lights, where it's the biggest festival that they ever have all year, and then they get upgraded to the opera. And it's just so funny the way that they're able to divert this trip to fit where Nick Fury needs them to be. And that part in particular, where everyone's just like, why do we have to go to the opera? And no one's even at the opera except for like 3 old people. Oh, I just thought it was so good. I thought it was handled so well.
And then this is hands down my favorite scene of the entire movie.
Okay.
It doesn't beat Avengers Assemble, but damn did it come close. Damn did it come close, because the whole Nick Fury Mysterio scene where basically from the second Peter gets to Berlin onwards, until he gets hit by a train, is, I think, the best one. Like, it's the best part of this movie, and it is the most comic. It was the first time I ever really felt, holy crap, you did Mysterio, and it worked where I didn't think it was stupid.
Yeah.
And it was perfect because it got inside his mind, and it felt there were shots where it felt like a comic book. Like, it did. It just felt like a comic book that I was like, where, because it was so fast paced and because it was just cutting in and out, and he was genuinely just terrified and absolutely in confusion and disbelief. And that is what Mysterio does so well. I loved that entire sequence. I had the biggest grin on my face. I was just smiling ear to ear going, this is everything I wanted from a movie with Mysterio as the villain. And it was just absolutely perfect. And I am so thankful. I'm thankful I got to live in a time where that happened and I couldn't believe it.
It definitely gave me Spider-Verse vibes in terms of just, I feel like I'm in a comic book watching it. Like, I feel like this is what the writers would want you to feel like reading this, to feel like this is who Mysterio is. And it very much does capture the confusion and the fear. And I think it really encapsulates not only what Peter is feeling in that moment, but during this entire film, where he has no idea what's going on with his personal life, with his superhero life. Like, he's just completely wrung out and doesn't know what's left from right, and has no idea how to deal with any of it. And I also think it really brought me back to that scene from the first movie where he's buried in all of this rubble and he's just defeated and overwhelmed and doesn't know what he's supposed to do. And it's another moment like that to me of just, this is Spider-Man. This is what Spider-Man does in a moment like this, where he literally doesn't know up from down because of the acid trip that he was just sent on by Mysterio, to getting literally hit by a train. That's just, to me, that's what Spider-Man is at the lowest point, but still getting up and figuring out what he needs to do. And I know in this movie he needed a little bit of help to get there. He definitely needed a pep talk, which we'll get to in a minute, because it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. But yeah, it was definitely, I'm glad that we got Mysterio now and that they've never tried it before when the technology wasn't there to do it. Because if you try this movie any earlier than right now, in my opinion. Well,
and also if you try this movie, because the use of drones and projections.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, like the fact
we're
that
just
they are
in that time.
Yeah, we're in that modern day where it makes sense. Whereas in
you look at it and you say, you know what? A supervillain in real life could actually do that.
Yeah, like with the money
what we
that
have now.
With the money that Tony Stark had, you could do that.
Yeah. Which is so interesting to me. I think it's really a reflection of the time that we live in, which happens in comic books quite a lot, where they reflect what's going on currently, even if they were written 100 years ago. So I really, really enjoyed that. I think one of my favorite parts was him waking up in jail and realizing, wait, you guys speak really good English. Where am I?
Yeah, that was good.
It was great. And then having the guard wearing his mask walk. The Night Monkey. The mask of the Night Monkey.
Oh my God, the Night Monkey. Jesus.
That is such a high school nickname to just come up with on the spot. And then to, like, once again, a reflection of the time to have it go viral to where people are referring to him as the Night Monkey.
The Night Monkey. Like, why?
It was so good. So good. Just little touches like that where that would have been all over the news, all over the internet. Like, totally would have happened like that.
Absolutely.
But one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Happy goes to pick him up on the jet, and they just have a heart-to-heart. Peter doesn't know what to do. He's still grieving, doesn't know how to handle it. He knows he's messed up. He doesn't know if he can fix it. And he's just at that low point. He's been hit by a train, so obviously he's in a lot of pain, and Happy's stitching him up. And he's literally at rock bottom. Can't really get much lower than where he's at that point. And it's such a nice moment to really have Happy there to not only sew him back together, literally, but to sit there and say, you know what? Tony had these moments all the time where he had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
Like, he messed up all the time. And what do you know, now you're doing that. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Like, Tony knew that you'd be here after him. And
that's why he felt.
He felt like he was okay to leave because he knew you were going to be here. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And I just thought it was so special to have that because, you know, as people who have looked in from the outside and watched all these movies, of course we know that Tony messes up. Yeah. We know that Tony had all those problems. But for someone who only knew him for a short time and never really saw much inside of his public persona, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't feel like the person who was also your mentor that you looked up to more than anyone in the world. You don't see them that way. So I just thought it was a really, really special moment.
And I think it also did the meta context thing of we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like the universe, the movies, the franchise.
We're all gonna be okay.
We're gonna move on. Like it wasn't. Okay, my go-to example for bad writing in we have to move on as we're going to be okay is from the Doctor Who episode Deep Breath, where they literally have Matt Smith call Clara to say it's going to be okay. I hate that scene more than anything because it felt so forced and unnatural. Here, it's Happy doing it. It makes sense. If you had Robert Downey Jr. doing it in that moment, it would have felt forced. Yeah. And it wouldn't have worked anywhere near as well as it needed to.
Well, definitely not. And one of that scene, funny enough, didn't almost make me cry. There was one scene that almost made me cry, but I was also laughing so hard that I thought I was going to die.
Is it the moment straight afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just before we get there, I just want to also just mention the fact that whole sequence and the lead up to it when the doors open and you go, will we actually get him build his suit?
Go ahead.
Okay. Like the fact that like then the doors open and he is like Peter Parker is building his suit.
Yeah.
The fact that we've never gotten that from one of these films other than the small suit that's not the homemade suit.
Yeah.
The fact that
he's sitting there using Tony's technology to build his own suit.
Yeah, and I love that because it just shows how smart Peter actually is. Yeah. And that he always built his suits. Peter always was the one to build them, and I really love that his current suit he built. Yeah. Anyway.
That's not the part that almost made me cry from laughing though.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, see, it's funny. I was crying because of the look Happy gave him. Yeah. The look of just.
Yeah, I know.
Of fatherhood, or not fatherhood, but of just of pride, I guess it was, and that was a really nice moment. Then when they played Back in Black,
I know.
It was an emotional of whole It brought you back there, but then at the same time, it was funny when he said Led Zeppelin.
I know.
Like it was like, oh my god. And I've seen people complain about how like dumb Peter is, like with pop culturally, like he's a nerd. He wouldn't be that dumb pop culturally, but he is trying. Have you actually talked to a 16-year-old?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you guys actually know any 16 to 18-year-olds right now who are pop culturally smart all the way back then? Because to them, that's a long time ago. That's a long time ago to people who are 16, 17 years old right now. Yeah. And if they didn't grow up with parents who are super into that, and even if they did, they still might not know that. Like you got to face it. You're getting old. Yes. Kids don't know your stuff anymore.
No,
okay.
They don't.
Like you just got to face it at this point that doesn't make him dumb. It just makes you old.
Yes. But
I'm going to get a lot of shit for that one.
So I thought that scene worked really well. We then obviously get the big giant end battle scene.
Yeah.
Really well choreographed. A really great, awesome moment. His his Peter Tingle. Oh God. The Peter Tingle was just.
It's such a parent
It is
old person joke to make.
It is, and I was just, okay, fair enough. But then everything from there onwards was just perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was really nice because in this big battle, we really got to see Peter shine on his own.
Yeah.
We really got to see him have the plan and just go with it and really get to execute it. And obviously it didn't go perfectly smoothly because what's a battle scene if everything actually works the way that it's supposed to? But I really liked Happy's incognito code word phone call.
Yes.
To Nick Fury.
Yeah. I thought that was clever.
That was good. And I really liked the scene that we get part of in the trailer where Happy goes to rescue his friends.
Yep.
But from that point on, I just had so much fun with it because you can tell he's trying to protect these kids, but he also has no idea what he's actually supposed to do.
He's like, what am I meant to do? Like, I did really thoroughly enjoy that. I thought that was actually
I thought
very
the
clever.
dynamic was really good. And I thought it made a lot of sense the way that they were all behaving for people who would have no idea what to actually do in a situation like this. I really liked the scene where they're all locked in the dungeon.
Yeah.
It's not a dungeon, but it looks like a dungeon.
It's where the crown jewels are.
Yeah. It's a dungeon.
Yes.
And they're all just in there freaking out and just panicking, and Happy's just like, I'm in love with Spider-Man's aunt, and they're like, what? I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. From there we get so we get what I thought was a really good way to end it. However, I think was Peter swinging with MJ in the street.
Yeah.
And her just being not into it.
I loved that because if they go with the stupid AF thing from the original movies where she's not terrified, I'm gonna lose it. Because
no.
Because there were some girls who would probably enjoy that, and then there are girls like me who would kill you if you did that. So I was pretty excited to see someone who was like, no,
never again.
No, how dare you?
Yep.
Because I felt that on a very personal, spiritual level.
All right, let's move on to...
All right, are we getting into this?
All right, let's get into this.
All right. So we get that scene of them swinging, and he sets her down, and we get interrupted with an announcement from the news.
Yep. From the controversial podcast
from the right-wing controversial podcast,
The Daily Bugle. I loved that.
Oh, that fits so well
it does with who Jameson is now.
Well, not only that, but you wouldn't have that kind of newspaper in print around now. Not the way that it would have affected people when the first Spider-Man was coming out.
Yeah.
Now it would have to be a podcast or a vlog or something that.
Like something with that much editorialization.
Right, that's what I mean.
It would have to be. So I did love that they've gone that's an element from the video game they're taking where they're like, he's a vlogger. Like he is an Alex Jones type person. Yeah. And I did like that moment. Anyway, we get J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson.
Yep.
Great reveal, an awesome moment for people who then reveals that Mysterio announces Peter Parker is...
Not only that. It starts off by... It's a video that he took from his perspective when Peter's shutting all the drones down, but it makes it sound like it was him who's giving the order.
Yep.
And he's controlling them, and he's basically the bad guy. So it's putting Spider-Man in a really bad light, first of all. And then he goes another step further by telling us who Spider-Man is.
Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
And that was the moment to me that ruined the movie for me. And I know that, you don't agree with me there.
No.
And I have a hard time with it because I don't want it to overshadow how much I really liked the movie overall, but I'm having a really hard time with it still, and it's been a couple days since we've seen it, but to me it still is bothering me, and I don't know if I'm going to get peace with it until I see where they go with it. Just because it's hard for me knowing what that does to Spider-Man's character.
I completely get that. And I completely understand the idea that, you know, Spider-Man has the unique thing about Spider-Man has always been that no one knows his secret identity. That has always been one of his biggest traits, and it was the whole point of Civil War in the comics, that he would not reveal his identity, and then he did.
Yeah.
However, I do also think that we're 23 films in, and I trust Marvel.
I do too, but I still just, in my gut, I just don't like it.
And I get that in your gut you don't. I'm just, part of me doesn't like it, but there's the part of me that you have doubted them before.
Yeah.
And you regretted it.
Yeah. And I don't even know if I would say that it's doubt. It's just until I see where it goes, it's going to be hard for me to feel like, okay, like that makes sense, and I like the direction they're going, because I don't know what direction they're going.
Yeah. And
it's not that I don't trust them to have a good reason for it and that they're going to get a great story out of it, but it's just one of those things that I just can't, like, in my brain, I can't be like, no, you like it, it's fine because you trust Marvel. I'm just like, no, I'm really not. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I was really angry at the end of the movie, and you know that I was really angry at the end of the movie. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm just a little disappointed that that's how it ended, because I really loved everything about it. Even the J. Jonah Jameson, like everything about it until that moment. Even with Mysterio, like making him look like the bad guy, cool, that's cool. But once the identity thing happened, I was like, I really, like, it just doesn't sit well with me.
I get that. I'm just...
Please don't yell at me in the comments.
Well, I actually think that there's going to be a lot of people who agree with you.
You think so?
I do. I do think there's going to be a lot of people who think that this is a betrayal of the character.
It just feels like it to me, and it's hard for me to not feel that way.
Yeah, and I do think that there will be a lot of people who do feel this way. And I am now agreeing with the idea that this is probably the biggest risk Marvel have taken since Iron Man 3 in terms of such a radical change of the character.
Yeah.
Like, where, you know, they've gone a full radical change of what is fundamental about a character. Which
is hard, because I've never felt Marvel has done with that with Spider-Man like a lot of people have felt. A lot of people feel MCU Spider-Man just isn't Spider-Man. Yeah. And I didn't agree with that at all. I love everything they've done with Spider-Man until that one moment. And then I felt like like I can't. The problem is I don't even have an issue with wanting to take characters in a new direction. But to me, that just is Spider-Man. Like you said, him never being willing to reveal his identity until that point in the comics. It's just hard for me to look at that and say, oh, this is a great idea. I love this, because without that, Spider-Man doesn't have much in terms of, like, if everyone knows who he is, what's the point of the mask, and what's the point of, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it changes the dynamic of the whole character, because then he doesn't have that personal life that he's trying so hard to keep together and separate from this other life. And all of a sudden, now everyone he's associated with is in danger no matter what. Like, it's just hard for me to look at and say.
Yeah, and then there's also the, you know, like, one of the big things about Peter Parker is he's never able to establish himself as his private life.
Right.
He's never able to do that because money is such an issue.
Yeah.
And licensing Spider-Man, like, that's, like, realistically, that's something he would be able to do. I mean, Tony Stark does it. Like, but, you know, that's going
that's
down
a whole different
that's a whole different
hole.
Look, me right now, I'm in a place of, in Marvel, I trust.
Yeah.
And because I am a massive fan of what they did with Mandarin. Mm-hmm. I think that was a clever change. I don't like the fact that essentially Guy Pearce was the Mandarin, and that didn't work for me. Because I didn't think Guy Pearce was a very good villain.
Right.
But I'm okay with them trying something new, and if it doesn't work, maybe retconning it down the line somewhere. What I am terrified of is that their retcon does a one more day thing. If they decide to do one more day, I may have to give up on the MCU because One More Day is, if you've never look up One More Day is one of the worst comic book ever written, and yeah, if they decide to do if they One More Day the MCU, we may never have to go. I may never see one of these movies again.
Well, let's hope that's not what happens then. Let's hope that they don't completely mess up all of this, which, once again, I'm not saying I think they're going to. I'm not saying I don't trust Marvel to know what they're doing at this point. I'm just having a hard time dealing with how I feel about the ending of it right now. But what did you guys think of the movie?
Yes.
Let us know your thoughts, please. I would love to hear from you guys, especially about a lot of the twists and turns, a lot of the more controversial choices that people have been talking about. Let me know what you think. As always, all of our links are down in the description if you want to find us on social media. If you want to take a look at our Letterboxd accounts and see what movies we're not watching right now because we're way too busy with everything else, you can go ahead and check that out. We do have Spider-Man on there though now, so
yes.
we're at least caught up there. But I think that's about it. We are going to try and record a little something about what we're looking forward to at Comic-Con before we leave. And that's like a week. That's like a week and a half. Oh my gosh, we're
back in the States.
We're going back to the U.S. to go to your first Comic-Con, your first San Diego Comic-Con.
We are covering San Diego Comic-Con live from San Diego.
I know, it's going to be pretty sweet. So we're going to put together a video of the things we're really looking forward to. And we'll take suggestions of what you guys think we should check out too. Yep. So we're hopefully going to get that up sometime this week. But thank you guys so much for all of your support and being really patient with us while we're trying to get this new place set up and not really posting regularly because we've had a lot going on. We've had so much going on, but you guys are seriously the best. So thank you for all of that, and we will see you all soon.
We will.